When Rahu went through Leo, it brought the patriarchy front and center for a year and a half. Trump, Roger Ailes, Hugh Hefner, Bill O'Reilly, all were newsworthy. Now Rahu is in Cancer and we're seeing the shift. So check this out. For the last year and a half or so, we have seen a strong emphasis placed on masculine and what you might even call a patriarchal world or society or mindset, both being elevated and destroyed. Both being, for instance, elected president and dying and getting destroyed and shifting and changing. So what do I mean by this? Well, of course, one of the things we have seen is, of course, the election of Donald Trump in the United States, as if he's not a figure of misogyny and a sense of male, white male entitlement, then it's never existed before. Now, I just want to warn people, I'm going to be speaking honestly about this theme and this subject. It doesn't just include Trump, but it includes some of his behavior. Let's face it, we elected a man president in the United States who bragged on a hidden camera that he grabbed women by the I almost said it. You know what he said? And somehow, this did not completely disqualify him as president. There were still tens of millions of women who voted for him, even though he said that. Of course, he didn't just say it, but this is obviously something that was true, that he had done. We also, but he's not the only one. This is not just a Trump video, but we see the fact that he has been elected president has shown an underbelly that has been revealed and illustrated in other ways, which I'm going to talk about. You can see on this chart that's on the screen, this is the chart of the entrance of Rahu into Leo in January 2016. As you see, when Rahu entered Leo in January 10th, January 12th or so, 2016, it was very close to Jupiter. And it continued through Leo until just recently, when it went into Cancer. And, just recently means early September of 2017. So from January 2016 until September 2017, Rahu went through Leo. And during this time, we not only saw the rise to prominence and election of Donald Trump, a white misogynist for sure, exploiter of women for sure, even like owner of beauty pageants. He admitted on, using his power as the owner of the Miss America pageant to like walk into the dressing rooms or the changing rooms of the women while they were getting undressed, and going on Howard Stern talking about all his exploits with women, talking about how instead of going to Vietnam, his sexual escapades in the 60s were his own private Vietnam, trying not to get venereal disease. These are just things that Trump has talked about casually. Anyone who doesn't realize that at the very least this man is a pure misogynist is just not very smart. I don't care if you like him or don't like him. Again, this isn't just a rant against Trump, because it's not just Trump. We've also seen, in fact, very recently, and what compelled me to make this video is we just saw recently Hugh Hefner died a couple weeks ago. As I make this video in early October of 2017, Hugh Hefner died. I'm going to do a case study of Hugh Hefner here soon to look at his chart, but Hugh Hefner was quite a trailblazer in many ways. Of course, his career was built on the backs of objectifying women. There's more nuance to it with Hugh Hefner, because he also really was a trailblazer in the sense that he started Playboy back in the 50s in the United States. 50s America was extremely conservative and uptight. So he's given a lot of credit for being kind of ahead of his time as a sort of trailblazer in open sexuality and sexual expressiveness, which you have to give him his due. You have to give him credit for that. That part of his legacy is true. But of course, it was also built on objectifying women, putting bunny tails on women. Women, you know, were sex objects. And again, the point of this is to show this transit of Rahu through Leo as a kind of signal or signifying of both the elevation of white male privilege, patriarchy, exploitation of women, and also the sort of death of it on a certain, in a certain sense. It's hard to say it was a total death when you have someone like Trump as president that we have to be dealing with for the next several years. But we see Hugh Hefner dying, a couple other very important figures, Roger Ailes, who was the head of Fox News. If you don't know who Roger Ailes is, Roger Ailes was a political operative that helped the first George Bush get elected. Definitely created a culture of sexual exploitation of women at Fox News. It also wound up bringing down Bill O'Reilly. Again, these are huge figures in the broadcasting world, the entertainment world. We recently just had Harvey Weinstein, who was a huge Hollywood career maker, who was just exposed as someone who has exploited women for decades. Just was brought down. His entire company, you know, his own company that he founded fired him. They're going to change the name. So we are seeing, especially now that Rahu has left Leo and entered Cancer, we've seen two major losses. Hefner dies, Hugh Hefner dies, and Weinstein, or Weinstein, I'm not sure how to say it, was just brought down. In the midst of this transit, I'm going to show this other chart of, this is the chart here of when Rahu went into Leo. In addition to this elevation of Trump as being elected president, again, we have to realize, everyone thought, including myself, that after that Access Hollywood tape where he bragged about grabbing women by the didn't say it. You know, right before that, he talked about moving on this woman like a bitch, this married woman, and yada, 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 yada. That there's no way someone could get elected president after saying that. Of course, his running mate was a woman, and a woman that people didn't like. And I'll say this right now, those who say that there wasn't misogyny in that campaign against Hillary Clinton, I would say you're crazy. And I know she wasn't a liked person, she wasn't a liked figure, but I will go out and say that I think there was certainly an amount of dislike for her because she was a woman, and I do think that. So what I'm talking about here in this video, and again, when I talk about things like this which are controversial, I do have opinions. Of course, I don't like Trump. I do think Trump is a misogynist. I also think Trump is a fool. And again, here we are 9 months into his presidency. Those who still don't think he's a fool and think that it's just fake news and, well, Hillary this and Obama that, if that's still what you're saying, keep saying it, I guess. It's funny how there's not many people saying that anymore, even that get upset about me talking out about Trump. I haven't done it much lately, but aside from all of that, I do have opinions about this, but I'm also just talking about the issue. And this transit of Rahu through Leo, Leo is actually the most masculine sign because it's ruled by the sun, and the sun is the archetype of masculine energy. And by the way, I said this when Rahu went through Leo, and I talked about figures like Trump, and also I talked about the sex scandals a few times, particularly as it relates also to Bill Cosby, and this potential for misogyny and the king and exploiting our power and masculine power being challenged, or being not just being challenged, but being overexpressed, overemphasized. And we saw with Rahu going through Leo that this kind of masculine energy, this patriarchy, especially white man patriarchy, the archetype of masculine power, was elected president, even though they went as far as you could ever go in showing what a sexist pig you could be. I'm not even bringing up racist or any of that. We're just talking sexist at this point. Didn't matter. But as this was happening, you had Roger Ailes, the head of Fox News, get fired. You had all of the sex scandals of Bill Cosby bringing him down. There were others actually going on as well during that time. You had Bill O'Reilly get brought down by a sex scandal. Again, and all of these sex scandals, they weren't really even just about having affairs. They were about harassing women, sexual harassment, male entitlement, mainly white male privilege. By the way, I'm not even getting into white privilege in this, but this is also cooked into this Rahu going through Leo because white people have been the king. This white privilege, this male privilege, this masculine privilege was a big part of that Rahu through Leo transit that just ended in early September. So notice how much of this was in the news, regardless of what you think about it, regardless of your opinion about it. You can't deny the issue, which is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the issue. That this was a theme we all had to reckon with, we all had to deal with. And again, this is what astrology really shows us, regardless even of what your opinion is of it, because those who will, again, once I start talking about these things, many times people forget the point. The point isn't for me to give you my opinion. Yes, I have an opinion. You can like it or not like it, but that's irrelevant, actually, to the issue. And in fact, the astrology made us face the issue. Made us either say, this is unacceptable, or, well, even though it's there, it's really not that bad. It's not that big of a deal that there's obviously misogyny, obviously harassing women, but because we hate her so much. By the way, I am saying I think part of the hate her so much was the fact that it was a her. I think if Donald Trump would have been running against any other man, he would have lost. Any other man, he would have lost. I think the hatred of Hillary Clinton was not just because of the fact she was a career politician. It's because it was a career politician and a woman. And I do think that. I'm sorry, but I think that. I think any other white man would have mopped the floor with Donald Trump. I do think that. We had to face this because I do still think there's still a lot of misogyny, because all misogyny isn't men. Women have a lot of misogyny as well, and that might sound like an oxymoron, but it's certainly not. And of course, anyone who is being real knows this. That women undercut other women just as much. I do believe Donald Trump actually won the white woman vote. I might be wrong, but I think he won it. I know he won it in certain age demographics, or in certain demographics he won the white woman vote. I believe it was non-college educated. It might even been college educated, but large portions. The fact that he got one woman vote, to me, whether white or black, is a mystery. Anyway, besides Trump, this isn't just a Trump rant. I'm talking about the issue, because we saw over and over again when Rahu went through Leo from January 2016 until very recently, early September. Look at how many people blew up, got fired, or even died. Roger Ailes also died. Roger Ailes lost his job at Fox. Roger Ailes put Fox News on the map. He was the Svengali, the genius behind Fox News, which was a total misogynist network. Not just hardcore conservative, but, you know, pretty women with extremely short skirts showing all these legs. Women totally objectified. What was her name? Heather Carlson? Heather something? Sued Roger Ailes, and within a couple weeks they settled, and he was fired and kicked out as the head of Fox News, and by the Murdoch family. And he is, I mean, this was an extremely successful network, but they couldn't deal with the PR damage, and he was obviously guilty, or they would have never settled. Bill O'Reilly as well. Just happened over the summer. All of these allegations of Bill O'Reilly harassing women, and he denies it, of course. A couple weeks, he's gone. Now he's got no career, or whatever his career is. Of course, during that time, we also saw, Bill Cosby blow up even more. I believe his trial happened during that time, or his total, disgrace happened. It started earlier than that. So this issue, this theme of female empowerment or lack of empowerment, or looking at the issue, was a big part of the the Rahu going through Leo transit. And again, we just recently had, since Rahu went into Cancer, which again, now Cancer is the sign of feminine energy. It's the archetype of feminine energy. It's ruled by the moon. And I said this in my Rahu Ketu web class, that Rahu in Cancer is going to be a time to connect to the heart, to the feminine, to the archetype of love, feeling, and unity. Leo is the archetype of masculine. Cancer is the archetype of feminine, because it's ruled by the moon. So for the next year and a half, it's really time for us to reclaim and reconnect to the divine feminine. We have to. And you look and see what's in front of us, what we face. We're seeing this exposed now, so obvious in our face, with this total misogynist fool as president of the U.S., and noticing how this issue of women being exploited is in our face. Hugh Hefner's death brought it out, where we had to really look at, oh yeah, the founder of Playboy, this magazine, magazine of naked women. Okay, well, what's wrong with that? Naked women, we see it now. It's so natural. And yes, okay, I'm not against naked women, or, magazines that depict naked women. The exploitation of women, though, is a big issue now, where men have been taught to view women this way. Hugh Hefner had a lot of other things that he helped bring forth, that his influence set in motion from the early 50s, when Playboy started, through the sexual revolution. But it's still the issue where we have to confront it. We have to look at it and say, so he did some good in unwinding some social stereotypes and social repressions that we had, but at what cost? What was the currency that was spent in order to get us not being just all sexually repressed? Well, women walking around with bunny tails on, and, date rape drugs or other kinds of things that were always rumored, or exploiting women simply for their bodies and all of that. And then here we go, Harvey Weinstein, he's this old movie executive who even now, you would think in the 2000s, 2017, you have a guy like this who was pressuring women for sexual favors to advance their acting careers. You'd think this was something out of 1930s or 40s or 50s Hollywood, still happening now. And anyone who thinks women aren't still exploited, that there's not still sexual discrimination, not even just blatant sexual discrimination, but wage inequality and all of these things, you're dreaming. These are huge issues still. And now, women in the U.S. who are, I don't know, sophisticated and intelligent and whatever, have to look at a president who said what he said. Everyone knows what he is on that level, and still have to realize that this country voted and elected him president. I'll tell you, one of the things, personally, I'll just give a personal statement. One of the things that I felt the most sad about when he was elected, is, besides being sad for all of us that we have this buffoon as president, is the first thing I thought was, I can't imagine what it'd be like to be a woman and see this guy as president based on what he said. I don't care what people think about, well, his politics, or he's not Obama, or, liberals, conservatives, all of that stuff. And while that election cycle was going on, so many progressives, liberals, oh, but I just hate Hillary, like this false equivalence between the two. I'm sorry, but I think if it was any other man, he would have not been elected. I think there was a lot of misogyny in that election. I mean, she still got 3 million more votes because she lost 70,000 votes in a couple districts of 3 states. But these were big themes, this male entitlement, this misogyny, this male privilege, also white privilege. I'm not really talking about the white part. But the reason it's white privilege is because Leo is power. And the power in this world are white men. White men have power. And Leo was the sign of power. And Rahu, going through Leo for that 1.5 years, revealed this ugly side of the world and put in power this person who also used and exploited his race. And this is why we've also seen a rise of white supremacy in the U.S., a certain amount of nationalism, and all of these things. I talked about all this when Rahu was going through Leo, not necessarily white nationalism, but nationalism for sure. So these are huge themes that just shifted. Whether you agree with my politics or not, try to look past it. Yeah, I put some opinions out there that you might not like, so what? Look past that to the issue. We're having to face the issue. We're having to face the issue. I'm not radical right or left, no matter what you might think. So sometimes people hear me say this and they think, oh, you're an Obama, oh, you love Hillary, you're some radical, liberal, blah, blah, blah. You're actually wrong. I'm not. So before you say, put forth a hate mail, it's actually not true. But the point is, this issue of hyper-masculine entitlement, privilege, royalty has just shifted and moved into a more emotional, feminine, receptive, reflective, that should be much more pro-woman, pro-feminine, pro-connection to the heart. Let's hope. I would not be surprised if we see a backlash against that in the next elections next year in the U.S. in the 2018 midterms. I definitely would not be surprised at all to see women carry the day as a backlash against it. And I would say that Trump and this rise of this 30% of nationalists, this nationalism that has grown, is in response to Obama's liberalism against those things. The Supreme Court allowing gay marriage was a big thing. I said that when Jupiter went through Cancer and we had that Supreme Court decision that there would be a backlash when Jupiter went into Leo, and there was almost immediately, etc. But I don't want this to get too much longer. The thing to take from this is Rahu going through Leo. We saw the emergence, the rise and fall, simultaneous rise and fall of misogynist, male, masculine energies. Unfortunately, in my opinion, we got one as a president now we're going to be dealing with for a few more years. But we've also seen many more taken down. Roger Ailes, brought down by a sex scandal and also dying. Bill O'Reilly, brought down by a sex scandal. We saw Bill Cosby getting more and more disgraced. We saw Hugh Hefner just recently die. And we saw this Weinstein also just get brought down. And I think there's more, but I'm not remembering all of them, but that's enough for now.